You said you didn't know what caused the decline in project success, right? It's from 32% up to 16%. But generally speaking, we have a tendency to have a good, let's say, educated guess, even if it's off the record. What do you think it is? Such a big camera as
It's actually is related. Before you answer the question, I also just wanted to also put forward a hypothesis of what could be the probable cause, just based on observation in the workplace. What I sometimes tend to happen, a lot of projects gets initiated from the top level of management. They want to get X, Y, Z done to meet some specific strategic objective as the case may be. But what in our environment tends to sometimes happen, they have somewhat unrealistic and unwavering expectations in terms of how much it would cost or how quickly it could get done. I mean, say they want X, Y, or Z done in 2 months or 3 months without understanding the complexity of what is required to take place or what infrastructure first needs to be to achieve that objective. And then there's when the professional who may have the understanding of what is required to deliver that objective, tell them, well, let's know it will cost a lot more or take a lot longer. Say, no, impossible. There's a sort of this attitude of the tail can't wag the dog. So we at the top level of management said, we want to get this. This is what we are going to pay for it. This is how long it should take, and you get it done in that time frame. And then when it fails, it's the IT's fault or XYZ fault, as the case may be. So it's just an observation. It may not be the root cause of it, but I think it may also have a contribution to why some things tend to not be as successful as we would hope for them to be.
Before you answer, both, I just want to add one thing from observation within the last 24 months. Our organization, we've been in the bid process with 3 state companies, one being utility, the other being services to the health sector, and the third being services to support for all of the other sectors. And there's one common ground, and I'd like to go back to what Reynold spoke about concerning regarding people and the quality of deliverables that these people could deliver. Each of the bids were cancelled, and this is after, you're talking about one bid was $3,000. So you have a governance issue where do we get our money back? And it keeps brought about 3 times. You had another issue where specifications from the bids were taken to release another bid. So then you have an issue now where if your information has any value at all. And then you have in the third instance now, you have where management sets, the minister sets the strategy, then you have the guys saying, okay, well, this is what we need, and then they copy it straight out of the book of a vendor and take your money, and then they say, well, the specifications were not good and adequate for our organization, so who did it in the first place? So it all comes down to the people that are actually, in my opinion, the people that are actually, one, preparing the specifications. 2, I don't think they have a clue whether or not they can either assess, something, the knowledge that comes, the information that comes to the table, especially when the information is much more than what their specification was or the limitation of the people to understand the additional specifications or better specifications given. So, back to you.
It could be all of that, and what brings it back was from the retired experience where I competent technical advice is set aside. And timelines are important, and there's always a political timeline here, wherever you go. And if I lay out a schedule, network, political path, showing that this will happen in the next 4 years, they say no, 2 years. And to do that, you have to bypass a lot of things that you must do. And then it looks good for the first 2 years, and they have to go. And then you're struggling for the next 5 years to complete.
But when the professional make a decision at that point,
The professional can't make a decision at that time.
not in terms of the project, but whether or not I as a professional will continue with this project.
No, that's a matter the professional will have to do it themselves. But you will have an organization carrying the project. So even though the professional may leave, the project still has to be completed by somebody.
I know, but should the project professional have some ability to influence that process? And if he doesn't have that ability to influence that process, is he setting himself up for failure up front?
No, I think he's getting into the realm of politics there.
Well, part of the process of project is in politics, you know, and that's why I think it's because you have to be aware that there is a political element to all projects.
Right, but that is one part. The other part which Ashley just raised is also correct, because a number of tenders are now being invited when organization has no professional staff to adequately prepare the briefs and the documents, and everybody within client.
Okay, but that may be so in Trinidad, but you have the same experience in the United States too, you know.
No, I mean, yeah, but that's
Right.
what you say.
So I don't want you to think it's a Trinidad.
Yeah, but I'm sure that it's not a Trinidad.
Yeah, it's not a Trinidad thing.
Right. So, yes, flawed specification, flawed documentation. Yes, the inability of senior staff, political people to take advice. And third part, which I don't want people to forget, is the competence of the people who are required to have expert opinions and judgments to do work. And they can say all wrong with the minister, all wrong with whatever, but if they can't do the work, they can't do the work. And generally it starts with misadvice. And that really comes from a lack of technical competence.
Can I add I have a lot of ideas. I should say a lot of ideas. There's a lot of experience that is bringing to be professionals as well who have a large, a large part of the reason why projects fail. Because we all, as professionals, define a project plan. And if I ask people here, how many of us follow the project plan, and you find that there's a low percentage of people who actually follow the plan diligently. So we have to go through the effort upfront, devising a good project plan as well. But the further the project plan progresses, the less you follow the plan. And that discipline is actually very important in terms of contributing to the success of the project, except that we don't do a good job of it now. And it's not only Trinidad, it's globally.
Yeah, all this is global. It's not a Trinidad.
While you brought that up in terms of following the project plan, I just want to draw reference to an HDC project that started years ago, opposite the gas station in Westmoreland. You know, that nice buildings that were there first. So what about change of scope that is directed by a minister or the government, and that throws the company that actually is handling the project totally out of the door, and they're blamed for billions of dollars in work. They call it, I don't know if it's scope creep or whatever the case may be. They blame a contractor for not delivering a project, but it's simply because the minister changed it. So now we have some, what are those, Victoria Keys or whatever? Now we have almost $1 million apartments when it was supposed to be affordable housing for people.
But okay, I mean, we'll have variations of the scope as the project progresses. So what do you do as a project professional at that point in time? We define a work plan, but more than we define a work plan, we get that signed off by the client. If you don't get a sign off, well, then whatever happens is your responsibility. We actually don't insist that our clients sign off, but the truth of the fact is, if we insist, even ministries, they will sign off. If we let them know as professionals, we're not going to continue unless they sign off on the revised work plan, so they will do it.
But I think the issue is bigger than that. The issue is not that the project is leveling. The issue is that goods and services to be delivered to the population takes longer, costs more, and in some cases don't deliver what was promised. And sometimes that is not an issue that is at the project level. That is an issue which is really at a different level, outside of the level of the project. And I'm saying it has nothing to do with a construction project, whether it's a water distribution project, healthcare project, whether it is a social project, that's the same thing that will happen all the time.
And I agree, but that is the kind of the state of play when you enter into a project like that. You know that. So don't come after the fact and say, well, the politicians did this and so on. You actually have to be, as a project professional, understand that that's one of the risks on the project. And you have to actually look at various strategies for dealing with that. Some of the decisions are not going to be in your hands. Whether it's in the public sector or the private sector, it doesn't matter. The thing about it is, as a professional, how do you actually address the project, and how do you readdress the project at the point of time there's a change in scope?
But in all of the cases, what we need to raise about documentation scope change and getting it signed off, that's important. But you see, when you know the background statistic, when you know that the project will come in 40% more, when you know that the timeline will be 260% greater, when you know that from before, when you have mapped the history of projects in Trinidad, when you know that that is what is going to happen, you would represent that in your document, in your brief, in your charter, whatever, you will do that. And I have done that. And I have been at odds with chairman of a particular organization until I left because he disagreed with that, and I never changed it. So when it was time to determine whether I continue my contract or not, I wrote and say, I am thankful I'm not continuing. But the issue was that up till now, those facts can't be disproved. But that didn't change the fact that the organization wanted to go ahead with what they were doing. Yeah, I went, but they still doing what they need to do.
Well, so I mean, you list a number of statistics, right? And I mean, like, our project manager could only control so much, right? But I mean, a large part of people's motivation. I mean, if your motivation is money, you would want to go ahead with a flawed project. I mean, look at the cost overrun we've had on a number of projects. I mean, yeah, you're speaking about the technical competency of people, right? Why think that people competent and they just moral compass or the off? So they rather look. No, I mean, we have to be honest.
So we spoke about the ethical issues.
Yeah, we
and
need to.
transparency issues.
Yeah, and that is why that is reflected in our falling. Every time you look at the transparency index, or we down to 39 or something, or 39%. I mean, there's a reason for this.
And what to say,
ethics.
not only Trinidad.
No, I'm not saying Trinidad. No, we talk about Trinidad. No, I'm not singling out Trinidad. I mean, it's happening in every society. But we live in Trinidad. We need to know that, all right, it affected us here. I mean, these things will have consequences.
I think also, the point you made before about enforcement is very important as well. Because if there's nobody, and importantly, we have got to the point where we need to have an approach to looking over our shoulders to ensure that we do the right thing. Many a lot of people who do the right thing without having that approach to look over the shoulder. There are many of us who still look ahead and do the wrong thing. You're not allowed to do so because somebody who's supposed to be there doing a job isn't doing the job.
But you as a professional are supposed to have a certain standard.
Exactly. But I'm not just talking about professionals. We have to talk all sorts of people who may not be professionals.
So you have to evaluate all of that and determine as a professional, is this something that I can do?
And if you happen to come across instances where the right thing is not being done, as a professional, you have a choice. Do I take steps to correct, or do I turn a blind eye?
You can't turn a blind eye.
I hear you.
I can't remember which document I read recently. It's either from the World Economic or Forum, the competitivity index. But in terms of enforcement, they had a particular criteria they were dealing with, the criteria in terms of how long it takes for certain matters. Like, I, as a contractor, I have a problem with the client or something, so this needs to become a legal matter. And it was something like over 1,000 days or something, so you're trying to deal with a matter in litigation. 1,000 days? Serious? So, you have a problem today, and 2-3 years from now, you might have some recourse. That's ridiculous.
A simple example that I was in the news this morning that every time that the highway project, not that the highway project that we have a stop, it's costing us $0.4 million a day. It took us how long to do some hydrology analysis, how long to do this, how long to do that. If this happens now for 2 years, you can imagine the cost overrun for the project, for the highway to Point Fortin. And then on top of that, we still have to do it. Because it didn't go off the ground yet. So
It was done. This information was done.
no.
But it doesn't necessarily mean that people said it public domain, but it was done.
What I'm saying is that the staggering of it is the actual staggering because it stopped. Because it did stop.
So what is that transparent in project right now?
And right now that costing us $0.4 million. That's what they said. I just
Okay.
looked at what they said.
And that's a good example to use because it's a recent example. If you know what it is, you can manage that $0.4 million. It's not that the project has stopped. Other aspects of the project has kicked in, while certain aspects of the project has stopped. So it's not truly costing us $0.4 million. But if the entire project was locked down, yes.
Anybody else have any other questions? I don't want to say anybody in the chat to ask a question.
No, I just one of the things I noticed what he was saying was when he broke down our budget, the 55 billion, and really see what bang we really get for our buck, you realize that how badly off we are in terms of the delivery of services to the society at large, right? When you consider that, I know the government has taken steps to for greater taxes in terms of the actual gasoline that we put in our cars, we realize that how much it really affects us, right? And we will continue to pay for it. And if we continue like this, we may have a budget next year of 65 billion, and then we may still have to pay more. We here have to pay, bang for our buck is just dropping.
Because I remember there was some Chamber of Commerce person during the course of this year's budget debate, and they were discussing matters, and they were saying that there was only a 41% implementation, which would be the 16% successful plus 25% challenge, let us say, and that's where it stops. And what we don't realize is if we do not have proper systems, governance, auditing, controls, kind of controllership, if we don't have all those things in place, we will be spending a lot of money on projects. And if you take Trinidad and Tobago's budget as a project, we spend a lot of money and not getting even not even getting 50%.